This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are on September the 21st, 2022. And, I'm looking forward to my fourth appearance at Horror-rama this fall. Actually, in a week from tomorrow, I'm going to be going to Toronto. And I'm looking forward to meeting up with my friend and actress, Lisa Langlois, who is the one who actually opened this up and got me out of New Brunswick for the first time in my 50 years. I was in 2017 and I had a ball, loved Toronto. But speaking of Horror-rama, I have one of the co-founders on the show with me today. He is was an editor for Fangoria magazine, a magazine I had several issues of. And he's also a filmmaker and musician. And between him and Luis Ceriz, I need to find out who is Linus and who is Charlie Brown underneath their hats.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Linus and Charlie Brown. There you go.
Folks, I give you the awesome Chris Alexander. How do you do, Chris?
I'm good. I just realized I have my Queen mug. I didn't even think about that, but yes, God save the Queen. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. It's, like you said, as of this recording, we're a week and change off from Horror-rama's return because we didn't do any shows during obviously the dark ages, aka the pandemic, and this is kind of our dipping the toe in the water return to doing these kinds of shows. And I don't know if I've had a memory wipe or maybe because I had COVID, I've got like long COVID delirium, but I don't remember it being this insane to put one of these things together. So we're really, really super busy, but we're happy to do it. We're happy to kind of get back to normalcy. If you can call putting on a show that celebrates sex and violence normal, then there you go.
Well, you know what? I turned 50 this year. By the way, look what I'm wearing.
Oh, good man. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lewis has designed that character. That's his art. So there you go.
Well, it looks nothing like him.
Nothing like him. No, it's what he wishes he looked like. Yeah. No.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to going. 2017, Lisa Langlois was on my show for the second time, and she invited me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's strange about that whole thing is I've lived here my whole life, and I would get homesick just going to St. John or Moncton. So how weird is it? I went to Toronto, and I probably would never have gone had she not invited me.
Well, I think that's it. It's not where you are; it's the company you're keeping. And let's talk like briefly about Lisa. What an amazing, not just great performer, but what an amazing woman she is. Full stop. I mean, she's just a great, warm, loving human being who I'm very happy to call a friend, as you are as well. So you could be on Mars, and if Lisa was hanging out with you, you'd probably be feeling pretty good.
Oh yeah. Well, we've kept in touch, and I know she sent me a cat stocking for my cat for Christmas there last year. So something that my cat did not like, but I thought it was fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember that first year I went. We went around to all the class of 1984 locations. And it's funny because Sean Clark I had on here, he could not find the house where the teacher lived. Well, there's a picture of Lisa and I in front of it, and had a for sale sign in front
of it. Did Sean come to Toronto and do one of his horror hallowed ground?
I think it was no, I think it was he did a write-up on it or something.
Oh, I see. One of his write-ups. Yeah, because I don't remember Sean ever coming down for that. We did a Kayla Janice, who's also coming to the show this year, her and I did a tour a couple years ago called Horror Express, where we took a van and we rented it and sold tickets, and I hosted it, and we went around to as many Canadian horror locations as we could. Not a lot of people do that up here. It's really weird why a lot of these guys doing those kinds of things don't come up here, because we have so many awesome, amazing locations. Like, we didn't go to the house for class in 1984, but obviously we went to Central Tech, the school, which is an operational school still. uh, that the movie took place in. And we went to some other locations like the alley on off Young Street where Roddy McDowall goes ballistic. But I don't think we went to the house. I don't think so.
Oh, we found it.
Hmm.
We found
Awesome.
it. Yep.
Awesome.
And we've also became friend. Well, Lisa already knew her anyway, but became. I'm still in touch with Erin Noble.
Oh, cool.
Yep. She is lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I had her on my birthday on here a few years ago.
Nice.
I rest in peace, Gord Lewis. I had him on here from class of 1984.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there, but
I don't
sad
know
he's
either.
gone.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the details were, but they're what didn't end well. Let's put it that way.
But I love that song "Little Boxes," which you can hear in
Mm-hmm.
the background during their little section and the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, telemarketer must be calling me right now, so that might ring like 18 to 25 times, but
Awesome. Don't answer it. Don't answer
nope.
whatever you do.
And Neil Clifford will not do the show because of bad experiences from doing the film, but Lisa and I did meet up with him. It was the first time she had seen him.
Yeah.
He's in
Well,
Toronto.
Lisa's interesting because, as you know from knowing her as a person and talking to her, she was so instrumental during that brief period in the early 80s when, horror was hot. I mean, it was all from the tax shelter and these movies were being exported around the world by bigger studios. Deadly Eyes was, a Warner Brothers film, and class 1984. I forget which studio released that, but it was a pretty sizable release. But all these movies were being shot up here, and so she was kind of a superstar. And then, it was around 1982 where she just said, is this all there is? And she bailed Canada to go to LA and try her luck out there. And she, worked steady. But I don't think she actually thought that any of these movies like Deadly Eyes, Happy Birthday to Me, Class 84 would have amounted to anything. They were kind of movies she made in Canada that came out and went, and home video was still a kind of a new thing, but the whole cult based around these movies did not exist. And I think she was quite surprised how years later she found out that she was kind of royalty because of her role, especially in class in 1984. So I think she was more surprised than anybody, but I love it because she's totally embraced it. She doesn't try to hide it under the rug. She's like totally jumped in and full stop and embraces this legacy.
Yeah. I'm going to be assisting her at her table, and I got a couple T-shirts with her face on it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that I'm looking
Nice.
forward to that. Stefan Armgrim's been on here 4 times.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
New York based. He might be somebody you guys might want to bring down
Yeah.
at some
People have
point.
always said you should reach out to Stefan and bring him up, and
Stefan's great.
maybe in the future. I mean, again for this year too, we started because we were kind of operating. We didn't have any budget because of what we lost, and so we're kind of been very careful about who we book and how many people we book.
Mm-hmm.
And to be totally honest, we sunk a lot of our dough. And it's someone you've had on your show, I know, is to Carolyn Monroe because we're bringing her from England. So we had to be very kind of careful of who we were bringing in. So it's a very kind of, I think it's a very lean list, but it's a very good list. And we've maximized the stars we have. Like we are screening, we have Lisa, we have Leslie, we've had before, obviously, but we're bringing them in. I'm screening. I collect film prints, so I have a beautiful film print of Deadly Eyes, perfect mint
Do you have
condition.
a beautiful film print of The Room?
The Room. Like the Tommy Wiseau?
Yeah.
Because there doesn't exist because he shot that on digital. So it was never shot on film.
Just
Although
joking.
he's
He
so
was
vain.
my first guest.
Well, good for you. I've interviewed him before too. It ain't fun. He's so vain. I'm surprised he hasn't transferred The Room to film, just so he can say he has it on film. But anyways, we're screening Deadly Eyes with Leslie and Lisa, film print. And then Carolyn on the second night, I have a beautiful print of Dracula AD 72. So we're screening that with her too. So we've kind of maximized the guests we have. But maybe in future, yeah. We should have kind of dropped the ball for class in 84 because it was kind of the 40th anniversary this year. But it's also the 40th anniversary of Deadly Eyes. So I flipped a coin as to which one I'd salute. And I'm personally hugely partial to Deadly Eyes.
I like Deadly Eyes, but I'm hugely partial to Class of 1984.
Well, I love it. I love it too. Make no
Yep.
mistake. I guess it's apples and oranges. You can't compare a killer rats, Daxons dressed as killer rats running around Toronto to what's happening in Class of 84. It's a different experience. But as far as the Lisa Langwell experience, yeah, she's amazing and badass in 84. but I think she's kind of an ingenue in Deadly Eyes, and she's tirelessly trying to get that professor into bed. She's super sexy in it,
Yeah,
and the whole scenes in the theater. I think, and it's to me, it's the de facto Toronto horror movie experience, Deadly Eyes. So.
I've had Leslie on here a couple times too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and one other person I had from class of 1984 is Mary Lynn Ross. She's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
who played the teacher's wife. She is awesome.
Oh, great.
I
Yeah.
got her through Belinda Pulaski actually.
Oh, I love
When
Belinda Pulaski. Yeah,
I
she's
love,
she was amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I've had her on here a number of times. Here's my interesting story about Caroline Monroe though.
Sure.
I do tribute interviews when people have passed away.
Hmm.
I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter on here. I've had Audrey Hepburn's eldest son on here.
Wow.
Well, I wanted to do something on Ray Harryhausen
Hmm.
because I Clash of the Titans still to this day is one of my favorite films from my
Me too.
childhood.
It was a huge movie for me. We're almost the same age. It was a huge movie for me when it came out 81, right? Big
81.
movie. Big movie. Do you remember the Shreddies boxes that had the cool
Yes,
toy, like the little premiums? And those are the days, huh? And
I
I'd always end
remember.
up getting like I always wanted. I'd either get Perseus or I'd get the Burgess Meredith when he has the mask on. I got like a
Hmm.
million of those as a kid. I wanted, of course, like we all did. We wanted the Kraken and we wanted Medusa or Calibus.
We
I never got
oh
those. Maybe I did get Calibus.
we
I think I
got a
had a
ton
Calibus.
of Medusas.
Yeah, well, I didn't get any Medusas, but I wish I did. Anyways, I digress. So yes, you had Harryhausen's someone on to do a tribute to. You were saying I interrupted you.
Actually, do you know what I was told Medusa was a tribute to?
Like Harryhausen's Medusa with the snake body? No, I don't know who.
Joan Crawford.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
I can see it. She looks like with the cheekbones and everything. You're right. That design is very Crawford-esque. And funnily enough, it was the Mommy Dearest came out the following year. So they kind of my memories of movies at that period were kind of very Clash of the Titans being a big one, but also Mommy Dearest bubbling in the peripheral because it was also kind of, and I remember Faye Dunaway's clips what I would see on TV in retrospect now absolutely did remind me of kind of a Medusa or some sort of gorgon with the way her face was stretched and because that I think Mummy Dearest is kind of a horror movie in and of itself. But I can see, yes, I can see that for sure. Now that you mention it, never thought about it, but now I can see it.
I actually got a Ray Harryhausen autograph when he was alive. I
Well,
got through
I
the
would have been
mail.
I would have been more impressed if you got one when he was dead. Now that would have been interesting. You would have
But
had to somehow break into his tomb, grab his hand, and like that would have been a story.
I interviewed John Walsh, who worked closely with Ray Harryhausen,
Mm-hmm.
and he's part of the along with Ray's wife and family, part of the Ray Harryhausen Foundation. But so is
Nice.
Caroline, and
Okay.
Caroline was in the Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Yes. Yes.
And I got that here, and I got Maniac, and I got her wonderfully student performance in that high school
Slaughter High.
Slaughter High.
Terrible film. Yeah, I'm not a fan. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, she said she did not look 18, and I'm like, I don't care, you look great.
I mean, she looks, yes. I mean, Carolyn's in her 70s now. She still looks great.
But I got her through John Walsh.
Nice.
But it's like a domino effect because of Caroline, I got Veronica Carlson.
God rest her. And I was trying to bring Veronica into Horror-rama for quite some time. I talked to her. We had tried to make it happen. It was always an 11th hour thing, couldn't justify the cost. And obviously, that's why, honestly, to be perfectly frank, that's why I really pushed to get Carolyn this year because, not to be morbid, but I could see how I screwed up with Veronica. And, there's not many. Carolyn's one of the last few. There's Barbara Steele, but she's in kind of a world all unto herself. But those last great British genre film stars of that generation, there's not many left. Carolyn's definitely one of the last females. So it was mandatory that I just wanted to meet her. I just want to meet her.
Oh, same here.
I've never met this woman. I've spoken to her briefly and I've never met her. So it's going to be a very exciting moment in my existence just to actually share space with her. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Now, I haven't seen Dracula 1972, so
Oh my
I'm
God,
look
it's amazing. It's
haven't
so
seen it.
good. And this movie came out in 72, and it was Hammer's attempt to try to
Same year as I
modernize.
did.
Well, there you go. So that was your parents' attempt to modernize their life, and Hammer's attempt to modernize their brand. And Dracula 72 bombed, and everyone hated it. But now it's funny, you look back on it. It's a kick-ass, wild Hammer movie, horror movie, vampire movie. But also, it feels, because it's like Chelsea era London 72, which was again of the zeitgeist at the time, but now it feels just as antiquated and alien and weird as Victorian England. It's still a period, and it's a double period piece now because it takes place in two eras. And so there's something so otherworldly about that film. But the print, you'll love it. The print I have is an IB Technicolor print. It's flawless. The color literally screams off the screen. And Carolyn is, I mean, she's got a show. It's the best revival of Dracula. You know, in every Hammer movie, Dracula would get revived somehow. Carolyn's performance incorporates into the best revival of Dracula with during a satanic ritual, as the Grand Master Johnny Alucard gores out his own blood, mixes it with Dracula's, and pours it all over Carolyn's chest as she's screaming on an altar. I mean, it's just wonderful stuff. So you're gonna really, really dig this one, I think, and it'll be double cool because Carolyn will be sitting right beside you, watching it with you, which
I
is
got
weird.
VIP,
Good man, good man.
so I'm going to attend that and Deadly Eyes. So
Good.
looking forward, you know.
Yeah,
And
for
also
sure.
looking forward to meeting the creepy ghoul who does those walk around videos. I was the first to interview him. He does the Horror-rama walk around videos every year,
Okay. I don't know
and
this guy.
he's good. His only social media is YouTube,
Oh.
and he caught a glimpse of me in the 2018 one.
Hmm.
Of 2 seconds, I just reached out to him and had him on, and we stayed in touch. And I said, "Come around and see me during your walk around video this year."
Yeah, all right. Well, I don't know this guy, but I'll keep an eye out for him for sure.
Oh yeah, so I like him. But another one I've done tributes on to, actually five of them, was Zoe Tamerlis Lund.
Hmm.
Did five with her widow Robert, and those were interesting. The stuff I heard about her, I love Miss 45 a
Of
lot, you
course.
know.
Say Abel's best movie. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love that. In fact, Robert just sent me some stuff Zoe's in the mail. He said he knew I would take care of it, so I'm like, hands
You
down.
know what's amazing, man? Like, and I used to run Fangoria, as you mentioned, and I did it New York Magazine, but I did it I had three kids. I didn't want to move to New York, so I didn't want to uproot my family. And so I ran the whole magazine from my house in Oakville. Like literally ran this entire company, this legendary magazine. Met, connected with everybody. I had Nicolas Cage calling the house, and Barbara Steele, all these people. It was just my life. The kids were raised around this. But it's amazing. Here you are in Fredericton. You ever stop and think about that? With the power of the internet. Now the internet can be used for so many horrible things, but look at what you can do, and how many people you can connect with, and how many lives you can touch just by sitting in your, like, your bedroom or your living room, wherever the hell you are, on your device. It's remarkable, really, isn't it?
661 interviews as of right now.
Fantastic, man.
I've done since
Fantastic.
2015. I used to do them at the station on the
You're
phone.
five you're five away from the goal, though, right? You're five interviews away from the goal. 666, right? You got a few more to go, and then you're 666, and then you can hang up your hat. No?
I don't know.
The number of the
The,
beast? No? All right.
yeah, because the devil kind of jobbed out to Jesus on the cross. So
Well, okay. All
I'm
right.
go.
Maybe it's bad luck. Maybe you should skip 666 and just go
I'll
right to
go with
667.
666, but I mean, I'm gonna go beyond that. You know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. The devil got beat. I just look at it that way. But I do love horror films, and I love
Good.
movies of all kinds. But including a few that I'm going to show off here. What could these be? What could these be?
I don't know, man. The complete Ernest Worrell set. Ernest goes to camp, Ernest goes to jail, Ernest scared stupid. Is that what
Actually,
you got?
I had his nephew on here. That was one of
Oh,
my
Jim Varney.
tributes.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I have one of his tributes.
Neat.
Actually, got a few of your films here. We'll
Oh,
talk
my
about in a
films.
bit.
Oh.
Yep.
Ooh.
But
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I have had fun with this. Tommy Wiseau was just kind of a fluke thing. Former acquaintance of mine got that interview, and we did it on my show, and it was like, who else can I do this with? And my mind went back to my uncle who used to own a video store. And I was
Mhm.
like, I went after girls I had crushes on growing up. And I think the first two I went after were Lisa Langlois and Adrienne King from Friday the 13th. And
There you go.
I
Yeah.
got them both. I got them
Nice.
both. But nonetheless, and I got Sandy Johnson not too long ago because I'm a huge fan of Halloween.
Hmm.
And Sandy is an absolute doll.
Amazing.
But I used to do these on the phone at the station, but when
Hmm.
lockdown happened, I couldn't do it. You got Tom Matthews go be at there this year. Well, it was one of Tom Matthews, well, not one of his co-stars because he wasn't in a scene with her, but it was Nancy McLaughlin that introduced me to Zoom.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. Tom's great. And what an interesting guy. I always try to like get Horror-rama when I bring guests in. I'm not like not derogatory towards guys in masks, but masked guys, stuntmen with masks who have stuntmen. I mean, like, to me, if they've been in one movie, I mean, it's okay, but it's not that interesting to me. I try to bring people in that I think have led interesting lives, and horror being the hook. And Tom's an interesting guy because he's in one of my all-time favorite films, Return of the Living Dead. But his street cred with Friday 13th, 6, et cetera, et cetera. But outside of that, he's like a carpenter, and he basically, I don't know the guts of the story, but he built Ozzy Osbourne's house. I mean, it's stuff like that. It's like, never mind talking about running around chasing, who was it, CJ Graham in part 6? I don't remember. But tell me about building Ozzy Osbourne. That's the story I want to hear. So I like to bring guys like that have had incredible lives. It just so happens that they were in a couple movies or played ball in that park. But the stuff outside of that, that's what I like. That's
You
the
know
stuff that
what
I
he's really doing? He wants
what.
Ozzy Osbourne to replace Horshack.
There you go. I don't know what that means, but
It
yes.
means next time he digs something up, it's gonna be Ozzy
Oh
Osbourne
yeah, I
next.
forgot. You know what? Good for you, man. I forgot that Horseshack was his buddy that got greased at the beginning of that movie. You're right, Ron Palillo, God rest his soul. You're right. Horseshack. God damn. So I watched it with my kids recently, and in my mind, I'm thinking, should I tell them that that's Horseshack? And I'm like, they won't know what a Horseshack is, so I'm just gonna not even bring it up. Let's just forget
I
about it.
love Jason Lives. In fact, when I met CJ Graham at Frightmare in the Falls last year, I
Mhm.
called Nancy up, and she was up, and I asked her, I said, "Do you want to talk to CJ?" She said, "Sure." So I went up to his desk where he's signing stuff, and I said to CJ, I said, "Somebody wants to criticize your roadside etiquette."
There you go.
They chatted for about 2 minutes,
Yeah.
but Nancy is awesome. In fact, she made something for me. She and a friend of hers.
Ah, very nice, man.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Nancy be a good one to bring to Horror-rama some year.
Sure. Yeah, maybe one day for sure.
She
Yeah.
is an absolute doll.
We'll
I've
see. We'll
had
see. We'll see how this year goes, and maybe you never know.
But Tom I've had on twice, and I have him coming on. What is it, tomorrow? Yeah,
Oh,
tomorrow, Thursday, for the
nice.
third time.
Great. Yeah, he's doing a double shot. He'll be at our show, and then a month later he's at Frightmare,
I'm
which
gonna
was
go
kind of
meet
a
him at
sneaky. It
both.
was a sneaky thing from my brothers at Frightmare, that's for sure, because
James
we
Ponce.
had booked him first, and they kind of snuck in the back door. And but we are, even though Niagara Falls is an hour and a half away from Toronto, we're different shows, different experiences, right? So they're totally different kind of vibes. I think Horror-rama has got more of an art focused, more kind of bohemian ramshackle carnival vibe, and I think Frightmare is more of a de facto full-blown convention, right? It's actually in a convention center, so they're different kind of vibes.
Well, I have a lot of. I mean, I just did my first Frightmare in the Falls, but I
Mm-hmm.
gotta say, I always have a special place for Horror-rama. you
Yeah,
know,
it's more intimate. There's more of a I not again, you can't stack them against each other. They're different experiences, but it was the attempt with Horror-rama to make something a little bit more intimate, more again accessible, more I don't know, it's more like a hangout, more like a party, more like a vibe. And this year too, we have like, we have the band Night Chill performing on the stage, doing live
I've
sets
had
in the
Thea on here.
yeah, I tell you, yeah. So in the ballroom. So we have was trying to create some kind of cool environment. And I think that that building, it's such a weird building, that old Buddhist temple we're in. I think it's got a weird flavor to it. It's like what's going on over here? It's a temple in one area, then there's a bunch of classrooms down. It's like what's happening in this weird building? And I like weird stuff. I don't like, especially when it comes to horror. I remember always hating conventions. I don't like conventions as a rule. I don't like going into these places that look like they're lit like Shoppers Drug Mart. And to me, that's like a nightclub after hours when the light comes up, and you go, "Oh my God, this place is so gross." I don't want to see every detail. I like a little bit of mystery. I love these movies because they're seem like they're torn out of the Freudian id out of the ether. Sometimes these conventions kind of remove the mystery. You get to see the wizard behind the curtain, and sometimes you don't want to. So what I like about our little event, kind of, is that we just have this element of weirdness to it. You know what I mean? It still feels kind of mom and pop. And that's mostly, and you'll have Lewis on later, but Lewis used to run Toronto's biggest video store for like what 20
Suspect.
Suspect for like 20 years.
Hmm.
And Suspect was the same kind of place. It was kind of rough around the edges, kind of ramshackle. There was weird stuff. You never knew in any corner what you were going to find. But in the center of it was Lewis. So you could always just go up to Lewis and just talk about movies. So we felt like it was a kind of a cool place to hang out with some friends. And that's kind of what we're going for with Horror-rama.
Yeah, I love Horror-rama, and I gotta say too, like when Lisa invited me to that, like
Mm-hmm.
she showed me how to use the subways and stuff like. She really taught me how to operate in Toronto to the point where I know where I'm going. And even when I went to Frightmare, I rented a car.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa drove. She had a friend she was going to stay with, and I stayed at the Tower Hotel down there.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa picked me up when it was done, and we did a road trip back. So she always asked me a lot of questions about Fredericton here, and but I remember getting off that plane the first time in Toronto. I was like, I'm not in Kansas anymore.
No, and you get off the plane in Toronto, you're not even in Toronto. That's the funny. You're in Mississauga, actually, and you have to take the some sort of shuttle to
No,
get.
I was in Toronto
Oh, did
Island.
you get a? Oh, you went to Billy Bishop. Ah, okay, so you were in Toronto. I
I
like that.
I
Always
like
like I like that experience. I like that airport. I like that vibe of that place, of that airline.
I took Porter.
Porter, yeah, I love
Yep.
Porter. Yeah,
But it's like I haven't seen escalators since the 80s because we don't have them here anymore.
is that right?
Nope, we used to back in the 80s, just like drive-ins we don't have here anymore,
We don't
you
have many
know?
of those left here either. I think we have two, and one of them is beside my house, thankfully. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I'm there all the time. It's amazing. I love the driving.
You know what? I don't want to get off topic, but 2022's been a really good year for horror.
I think we're in a bit of a golden age, man. I think, I just saw Barbarian the other night at the theater
I
and it
got a
kicked my
guest
ass.
from it coming on tomorrow night.
Who do you got? Who do you got?
I got Matthew Patrick Davis.
Who's he? The director? No.
Nope. He's the barbarian.
Oh, he's the creature. Ah.
That woman is actually a male under
Well,
makeup.
I figured it was, yeah, because the way it moves, I figured it must be a male. Yeah, and that gives it an extra element of ambiguity and freakishness. But yeah, that movie kicked my ass, man. I thought it was great.
I loved it. I got him coming on tomorrow, and I got Tom Matthews coming on tomorrow, and
Busy guy.
hopefully, huh?
You're a
Well, I
busy
got
guy.
Laura Cayulet.
Okay. Don't know.
I hope I didn't mispronounce. She was Rocket in Kill Bill Volume 2,
Okay. All right.
and I got her. She was in Django Unchained as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I got 3 tomorrow night after I'm done work. But yeah, I have Trying to think where I was going to. Oh yeah, good. It was a good year for horror. I saw X 4 times in the theater.
Hmm.
Loved it, and I just saw Pearl, and I want to see if Mia Goth doesn't get an Oscar nomination for Pearl, I'm
I
gonna be
haven't I haven't seen it. I wasn't a big fan of X, tell you the truth, but I'm really
why?
no, I just didn't like it. There's a whole reasons why, but I'll tell you this: anytime I don't like a movie, and if people I know like it, I always go back and watch it again to see if I missed something or if I was in the wrong frame of mind at the time. And for example, I watched the movie. I didn't know that Mia Goth was playing Pearl. I had no idea that she was two characters. So at the end of it, someone told me that. I'm like, oh, well, if I'd have known that going in, I may have been looking for something I wasn't looking for. All I saw was young people in old people makeup, and I thought it was hokey. But now I'll go back and check it out. But Pearl looks like it's right up my alley. It looks like super saturated, like a Douglas Sirk movie. So I'm really into checking that one out, but haven't seen it yet. But you're right, we are in the kind of weird renaissance right now for horror. I mean, it's just nonstop. The fact that Barbarian or Pearl or X, I mean, the fact that these movies
Black
are
Phone.
over Black Phone, I get a little more because of the Blumhouse deal, but the fact that these little scrappy movies like these exploitation films are getting wide theatrical releases is pretty awesome. You know, a few years ago, these would have been direct to video, boom, right to video, right to streaming. You wouldn't have seen them, they wouldn't have seen a screen. But now I think maybe post-COVID, theaters are trying things out a little bit. They can experiment a little more now that the big blockbusters are also premiering on streaming. There's kind of like more room to fuck around. And I think we're seeing some weird stuff in cinemas, which is I'm all for.
I'm looking forward. There's gonna be Maxine with a triple X from the
Yes, I have
X's.
the third one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, following the character from X. But I
Mhm.
mean, even so, before the beginning of this year, I didn't know who Jenna Ortega was.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Now, I mean, she was an X,
Mhm.
and
She
she
was
was
great
in.
in that. Yeah.
Yep. I would like to see her at some of these conventions.
She's too big. And I don't mean that derogatory to people that go to conventions, but maybe you'll see her at San Diego Comic-Con or something. But
Oh
to
man.
be honest, and I remember sitting with in where was I in maybe in Texas or in Seattle somewhere, and I was with David MG from Dawn of the Dead. We're on a little shuttle from the airport together,
Mm-hmm.
talking about doing the conventions, and this is before Horror-rama, but just when I was running Fango, I guess. And he said, doing these conventions is for me is getting the residuals that I never got. So all these performers were in all these movies and they just got their daily wage. Some of them didn't get paid at all. And then off they went into the night. And now suddenly it's their ability to kind of go back and get these again, quote unquote, residuals that were never given to them. Perhaps they should have been, but most of these movies were low budget. They didn't have such an opportunity built into any contract if there were contracts at all. So someone like Jenna Ortega, I don't think she's not there yet. Give her about 10 years or something. Yeah, we'll probably see her running around doing the circuit. But right now her star is ascending. So no, I don't think we're going to see her at conventions for the near future, anyways.
Yeah, I like her, and of course, I want to see Halloween Ends. None of them have compared to the original. I love the original Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, I don't have all of them here, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have the original. Because the original wasn't a blood fest.
No,
So
there's no blood and all in it. It's all atmosphere, right? The
yep.
sequel is a blood fest. Now I like the sequel too, but it is a
I
gore.
like Halloween too. Yep.
It tries to, because remember Friday the 13th chased Halloween and they brought the gore. So Halloween 2 almost seems like it's chasing the film that chased part 1. So trying to compete and bring a lot of more gratuitous blood. I like Halloween 2 though. I like the first 3 Halloween movies. After that, they kind of lose me a bit.
Yeah. I don't. It's hard to believe Friday the 13th made more money than Dress to Kill, because I think Dress to Kill was a far
Oh,
better movie.
you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
I had Nancy
Dress to
Allen
Kill's
after 5 years. I had Nancy Allen on here last year.
oh my God, I'd love to meet Nancy. We did a piece on her in Fangoria, but it wasn't me doing the interview. I love Nancy Allen. God, she was so beautiful then too. But it made more money also because it cost probably the same amount of money that Dress to Kill had for its like catering. Friday 13th didn't cost anything really. It was a low budget independent, whereas Dress to Kill was a much bigger production, obviously. Big studio film. If it wasn't a studio film, it was distributed by a major studio and had big studio money. But so it had a lot. The deck was stacked against it to recoup its budget. But Friday 13th, yeah. It's the low budget horror formula, right? The Saw movies cost nothing to make. They made them, what, how many? 8 back to back in one shot. And they always made their money. They tripled their money because they didn't cost anything to produce. I think that's why a lot of people get involved in horror to begin with, like Sam Raimi, Evil Dead, because they know that you don't need big stars. You just need a cool concept, great music, and a little bit of sex, a little bit of violence, some special effects, and you have a good chance at getting a hit.
Cool concept, like the Greasy Strangler.
I was wondering what that was. I saw Grease and then I saw Greasy. I didn't know that was a Greasy Strangler reference.
I
That's
actually have
I'm surprised
interviewed.
they didn't get sued because that's the Grease title treatment. That's the font.
I had Michael St. Michael's and Sky Eliber on here, and
Mm-hmm.
Sky Eliber sent me this.
That's awesome, man.
Michael St. Michael's, I'm gonna tell you, he's freaking hilarious.
Man, that movie was too much. I couldn't finish it. I wasn't in the right frame of mind to hang out with those guys. You know what I mean? It was like,
Speaking
man,
of
I'm like,
cons,
I could be doing other things right now than hanging out in this world. So I shut it down. But I thought it was interesting and cool, and I appreciated it. I just, yeah, I didn't want to hang out with those guys.
what about Dead Dicks?
Dead Dicks is it's a Canadian movie. It's a friend of mine made that picture, but to be honest, and I covered it in Delirium, and I never actually
interviewed
saw it.
one
I
person.
never saw the film. I actually never watched it.
Oh, it's
But I
pretty
should.
interesting.
I
I've
know
got it
everyone who
here.
saw it loves that film. I know I should make time for it.
I interviewed one of the actresses from it, the bartender in it.
Okay.
And yeah, and but speaking of concepts, have you heard of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey?
Yes, of course. And originally I thought that it was okay. So more, I guess Disney lost the rights, or not lost the rights, but they didn't renew the rights for theatrical for Winnie the Pooh, and the property is long since gone into public domain, so anyone could make a Winnie the Pooh movie. You and I could tomorrow, and not really run into any problems. But I thought that, for sure, someone's pulling someone's leg. They've created a concept trailer for a movie that doesn't exist, and they're doing this for one reason: to get that out there to piss Disney off, so the Disney will come back and pay them an exorbitant amount of money to bury the film, sort of like what's their faces Marvel did, or whoever was running the Marvel studio with Roger Corman with that Fantastic Four movie. Said, don't release this, here's money, and he shelved it. That's what I thought. I thought it was a big hustle, but apparently it's not a hustle, and it's coming out.
I
And the thing
interviewed
is,
one
what I
of the
hate about it
actresses.
is that it doesn't look that bad. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll watch this movie.
Oh yeah, I
You know?
interviewed one of the actresses from the UK from it. So
I
that
think
was
that's it too. It's British. So, Ali Chappell, who's, not just in a lot of my movies, but is also my partner. She said this to me at one point. She's like, "Now, is it smart or is it British?" Meaning that the addition of a British accent a lot of times can make something that's not that intelligent seem much more intelligent than it is. So, watching the trailer for Winnie the Pooh, it's like, you see these refined British accents, and you're like, wow, this is actually pretty good. And it's like, if it was American, I probably wouldn't have thought the same thing. But something about the British accent elevates just a little bit a movie like that. So,
And I also got one of your. I read the up on this
mhm.
before I had you on here, and I'm like, wow, I got one of your old pals coming on here just before I leave for Toronto.
Who's that?
For the third time.
Mhm.
I'll give you a hint. Germany.
Germany. Werner Herzog. I don't know who.
Germany, but was in Vancouver.
Oh, Uwe Boll. Oh, wow, good for you. Yeah, he's a trip.
I gotta admit, I loved
My
Postal.
my ears are still ringing from the punches I took from Uwe Boll.
I haven't seen a lot of his movies. I loved Postal, and I've interviewed a lot of people from it.
I was in Postal for like a minute. Like, I'm there. I'm just like in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the deal was when I boxed them and I went out there, they flew me out to fight him at Vancouver. I
Mm-hmm.
spent the day on the set, and they just put me in wardrobe and they threw me into the movie. So I'm there somewhere. I don't think have I seen, yeah, I've seen Postal, but I don't remember seeing me. But apparently I'm there somewhere.
Yeah, I've had Zach Ward on here, and
Yeah, Zach's a cool guy. I like
yeah,
Zach.
I've had 5 or 6 people from that movie on there, and I got to admit, I liked Postal, but I haven't seen like House of the Dead or Alone in the Dark. They're not really my thing, but
There's no need
Postal's.
to there's no need to subject such yourself to such torture. No,
But
you're
I
okay.
did like Postal and I like Blubberella, but those are like horror comedies or whatnot. I was able to channel those.
I don't know how the hell I mean, he really is a miracle. How does one get financing for Blubberella? You
I
know,
don't know, but Lindsay Hollister is really a trip too.
well, I mean, I tuned out of Uva's stuff a long time ago, but apparently he got better as a filmmaker. He's a
Yeah.
smart guy. I mean, Uva, I don't know
Mhm.
if you've interviewed him.
I've interviewed him. I'm about to interview him a third
Okay, so
time.
he's really volatile and he's kind of eccentric, but he knows his film. He knows film
Hmm.
history. I spent the day after we had the big fight at his beach house in Vancouver walking his dogs. And we just
Hmm.
sat around talking about Orson Welles, and like this guy knows his shit. So, a boxer, a crazy filmmaker, an exploitationeer of tax credits, and a film historian. I mean, he's kind of the whole package when it comes to, huh? Like I say, what the fuck is this guy? Where'd he come from? Really interesting dude.
Well, let's go back and talk a little bit about you editing Fangoria magazine. What would you say was your greatest memory during that time?
I mean, the greatest memory is getting the job to begin with,
Okay.
because I'd come from Rue Morgue and I was teaching film history. I had gotten a car accident and I'd skinned my arm and I almost died. I flipped my car several times and got out alive. And my arm had no skin. I was all bandaged up and I was delirious because I was on painkillers. And I was in a used record store like a week after the accident. And there was talk that I was even going to have my arm cut off, which was like, oh my God, because it was infected. And anyways, the bottom line is I was in a weird state of mind. And I got a phone call when I was looking for movies and records. And it was the publisher of Fangoria said, look, listen, we're sick of what Tony Timpone's been doing for 25 years. He's been here forever. We love what you do. And how would you like to run the company? And I was like, huh? What? So obviously I said yes. So that's probably my greatest singular memory is actually that phone call, because it's literally a gift from the gods. That phone call doesn't come to many people. Has not come to many people, if any. I mean, just to actually have that thrown on my lap was remarkable. And the fact that I didn't have to move to New York, and I mean, it was just great. But as far as like encountering talent, and at that point I'd already been in the business a while, so I'd already interviewed a lot of my idols via Rue Morgue, and was writing for the Toronto Star pretty steady, and it was pretty much a steady working journalist. But I guess the greatest memory is a couple of them. One was Barbara Steele, my hero and icon, bringing me to her house and making me dinner with Lisa Marie, Tim Burton's ex-wife. She was living with Barbara. Barbara was taking care of her after they split. And they made me this amazing dinner, and I hung out with them just because I could, and became really close with them. And that was a really cool experience, just spending time with her in her house. But probably the weirdest and coolest one of all is Nicolas Cage, because he was such a huge fan. Uh, through his people, said, I want, come to my house. And I said, where's your house? It's in the Bahamas. So I'm like, okay. So I literally got on a plane, went to the Bahamas, and had to go follow this map to get to a dock. When the guy in the dock picked me up and took me to Cage's Island, and he had all these horror movies laid out, all Hammer horror movies all over his coffee table. And all he wanted to do was talk about these movies. And he tried to make me eat a snail's dick. He had his manservant hacking up a snail, pulls out its penis, said it's like Viagra. A rooster showed up on the courtyard. He asked if I wanted to sacrifice it in the voodoo ritual. And it was just insane. Meanwhile, his people are bringing me wine. So I'm like getting hammered in this courtyard in his island. And it was just, and then we became really good friends. He'd call the house, and I threw a party for him in New York, and with him and Idris Elba. So it's just like crazy adventures. That's one of them, but that was probably the most freakish and memorable in that run. But again, if I could sit here all day and just relate bizarro adventures that I had at the steering that ship, because the one great thing about Fangoria, I mean, I can do a million things in my life, and at the end of the day, someone's always going to say he was the ex-editor of Fangoria, and that's fair enough, because Fangoria is a legendary fucking magazine, right?
You
And I
were
had
part
that,
of it, yeah.
yeah, and I had a big, 6 years and had complete creative control of what
Mhm.
went into that book.
Mhm.
So, and I was part of the last guard of it before that company eventually stumbled over itself. because of the publisher and died. It was published uninterrupted. I could see the writing on the wall, so I left and I started another magazine with Charlie Band called Delirium, and I phased Fangoria out slowly, respectfully, and then I quit. And as predicted, they lasted another 2 issues, and then they just died until they got revived recently. But that's a totally different company now. It
Mm-hmm.
says no, there's no bloodlines to what the mag was before. But I was part of that kind of last gasp of that original bloodline, so it's kind of neat.
It's interesting, because you and I are both around the same age, and
True.
it's strange for me to think that I'm actually doing this. Like, for example, there's some people that's passed away that I can't believe I've interviewed. Like J-
That's our generation now, isn't it? Where we actually see now these people start to leave, and you're like, oh, but
well, Jessica Campbell from Election. She
mm-hmm.
was only 38. I don't know what happened to her, but
Don't
I
know.
had her on a year before her passing.
Mm-hmm.
I had Dick Miller on here 5 months before he
Great guy,
passed.
amazing guy.
Yeah, I had a great time talking to him and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Laney's his wife. Yeah, she was
he
she's
was in The
wonderful.
Graduate.
Yeah, she was. It's
Yep.
true. Mm-hmm.
I had a great time. I even asked him if he owned a bathroom buddy from Gremlins.
Gremlins, of course. Yeah, those things always break.
Yeah. He said he had a reversible toilet.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, Dick was. He was in town in Toronto for a screening of the film they made about him called That Guy Dick Miller. And I did a live Q&A with him on stage and went out for drinks with him and Laney afterwards. And he was a real trip. As like one of my heroes is Roger Corman, probably the number one in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another one. I've become friends with Roger. He's 96 and he's still rocking. And Roger and I just made a book together. So that book comes out next year. It's about the making of his Edgar Allan Poe movies. But the regret is that I never actually took time with Dick to actually do an interview with Dick. So I missed that window to actually get a printed interview done with him. It would have been great in this book because Dick's in not all of those Poe films, but a few of them. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously so many Roger Corman movies. I missed that. There's a lot of these guys that I'm kicking myself that I didn't make the time for before they go to document something. And that's the same thing with Rogers. That again, 96, still going strong, making a movie in Ireland, but he's 96. He's no fool. It could go anytime. He could leave. He will leave soon. I mean, there's no denying it, unless he's got some sort of superhuman power that I'm not aware of.
I
But
don't know whether he'd do a show like this or not.
not now, but he did. And in fact, he wanted to come down a couple of years ago. He said, I will, I'll give you a deal and blah, 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 blah.
No, I mean like a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? He might. Uh, Maybe. He's pretty good on Zoom. And we just had him. I produce a show for Charlie in LA called Freak Show. And it's a podcast and video show. It's a TV show hybrid for Amazon
Mm-hmm.
Prime. And I book all the guests, bring them in. And I got Roger on there, and that was only a couple months ago. And he, showed up. Hey, what's up? Sat down. Amazing interview. Said I got to go. Went back in his car. Went off.
Very
So
cool.
he still does this stuff. Yeah, he's still out there doing stuff for sure.
Yeah. And I had Ernest Harada from Rosemary's Baby on about 5 months
Ooh.
before he passed.
Mm.
But I owe a huge thank you to one of your previous guests at Horror-rama for one of mine.
Who's that?
Well, I met Lamberto Bava,
Ah, yeah.
and I remembered about 2016. I reached out to Daria Nicolodi on Twitter
Oh, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
get an
So,
interview,
yeah.
and she turned me down because she had said she got tired of talking about the 7 Dario Argento movies she had done. So she was polite about it, and I left it be. But I did with her what I did with Ralph Bakshi when I had him on here. I had Ralph Bakshi on here twice.
Mm-hmm.
I waited for an anniversary, and Deep Red was going to be celebrating the anniversary. So, but this was even after I'd met Lamberto at Horror-rama. So I reached out to her again, pitching the anniversary, and I had mentioned to her that I met Lamberto Bava. Here's a quote. She said this on Twitter. This interview will likely not happen. But I indulged her, and she come back at me and she says, I want to show my love and appreciation for Mario Bava because he was in his last movie.
Shock. Yeah.
And she said, I want to also show my love for my daughter, Asia Argento. And I said, yes. I had Daria Nicolodi on in, I think, February of 2020, just months before she passed away.
You're lucky. I tried so hard with Daria and I communicated with her and she was very erratic. She'd come on and say, yes, I'm all for this. Let's do it. Then she'd go dead silent and then she'd turn it down and then she'd respond in Italian. I was like, wow, I don't know where to go with this, but I never got the chance. I offered her the cover story of Delirium too. It never worked out. So you're very lucky you had that experience.
We talked about Deep Red.
Mm-hmm.
And briefly about Suspiria, and I mentioned, of course, working with a young Jennifer Connelly in Phenomena.
Sure.
But we talked about Mario Bava, we talked about Shock, we talked about Asia Argento, and I remember she said to me, she was really hard on me before, but she said she was really glad she did this interview, and that felt so good to hear that, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. Now talk about you and Lewis. How did you and Lewis first meet? Was it you going to Suspect? Because that's really where Horror-rama
no, and it's
came.
funny because Lewis is a little older than me, and
Don't tell him that.
Yeah, well, he's okay. He's open about that. I'm 48.
You're younger than me.
Yeah, a little bit. He's 54, I want to say, Lewis, something like that. Maybe not that old. He's somewhere in there. And anyway, so Suspect Head was in existence when I was in college, and I just was desperate to work there. And there was nothing else like Suspect, and I would just keep going and applying and sending my resume. And my resume was pathetic because I had no experience in the arts at all, and I had no experience anywhere really of value that to Suspect. Never worked in a video store, and I would try and never heard back. And I remember Dario Argento was there signing one time, and this is before fan culture really exploded. There were no conventions in Toronto, nothing. And all they had is a little sign on the door. I think Dario was in town for Toronto Film Fest. I think Stendhal Syndrome. He was here for that. And so they'd arranged for him to come in. And I was like so excited. I lived in Mississauga. It took me in 2 hours to get to downtown Toronto. I take all these buses and I get down there. And I'm like, oh, I'm like the first in line. Not only the first in line, the only man in line. Nobody was there. Nobody. Dario's sitting at this little table and Lewis had printed out video covers that you could get for free and get him to sign. He was signing for free. And I got him to sign a bunch of stuff, a copy of Two Evil Eyes that I had on VHS, et cetera, and went on my way. And I'd seen Lewis, but I didn't know him. I didn't get the chance to know Lewis until I took over Fangoria and we started to hang out at some of the same conventions. And when I took over Fangoria, there was a real buzz. In the first couple of years, it was a really like, wow, what's going on with Fango? There's all these new exciting features. It looks better than ever. And everyone was like, just this is the return. It hasn't been this good since the 80s and blah, 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 blah. And Lewis came over to me at my table and said, look, the buzz is huge, man. I'm selling out of Fangoria at Suspect. And I said, why don't we revive Fangoria conventions? Why don't we start work together? And I did not want to do a convention. I didn't like conventions. So I said, oh, I'm not personally interested, but what I can do is I can loan you out the name Fangoria and you get the convention going. And so I put him with one of my partners who I was working with, and the two of them went off to make a convention. But then my partner had imploded, some sort of nervous breakdown. He bailed, and suddenly Lewis was left with his dick in his hand. So I stepped in for that first round to book all the guests because I knew all these guys as friends: Savini, Ogre, Barbie Wild. All these people were my friends. So I brought them all on board, and that was Horror-rama year one, and we busted our ass, and I was really surprised that it actually kind of worked. I said I'll never do this again. Of course, year two comes around, and I do it again. And now that's pretty much every year I say I'll never do this again. And here we are, year 7. And the reason I keep coming back is pretty simple. It's that, I love Lewis. Lewis is like a brother. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met, the calmest guys, the funniest guys. He makes me laugh. He's just a decent human being, full stop, who likes the same weird shit I do. And, I want him to succeed and I enjoy just this time because, life is busy. We don't hang out. We don't go bowling on Friday nights. So this is kind of our annual hangout.
So which one is Charlie Brown and which one is Linus?
We both exchanged. We both switched that role, I guess. Yeah. Who's the guy with the blanket? I think I'm more Pigpen. But anyways, Ali Chappell, speaking of, maybe she's Pigpen. She's now part of the team as well.
Oh, we're going to talk about her.
She's a beast. I mean, she's the most organizational force of nature ever. She kind of stepped in because she likes doing this stuff, and I don't. And so
Oh, I
she's
remember the first year I met her. She
yeah,
was working at the Halloween teas down there in the canteen area,
okay.
and I was a little smitten because she was beautiful.
She's
And
all right.
I had her on here last year. She
Yes.
was on here for 3 hours, and that's
Oh my
not even
God.
my longest. That's not even my longest.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Glover, Craig Muckler, and Paul M. Salmon, who wrote the future noir, The Making of Blade Runner, they're much more long-winded.
Craig Muckler will keep you on for 24 hours if you're not careful.
Oh, he was
Yeah.
on for 4 hours and 8 minutes,
I
and
know, I know, Craig. Craig likes to talk. There's no doubt about that.
Paul M. Salmon went
Yeah.
5 hours and 20 minutes, and he
Well,
warned me. He
I
warned.
hate to burst your bubble, but I'm not going to even be remotely close to that record. I got to get going soon. I have a 12 o'clock call with Charlie, my boss, my partner in crime, working for Full Moon. It's like it's an amazing experience. There's so much going on. We're making insane movies. It's like Full Moon was in the 90s, but
Mm-hmm.
the work, man. It's like I'm and Ben-Hur. I'm the slave in the galley.
Got that, and it's got the other movie on it as well.
Queen of Blood for Irina. And now the third one, Blood Dynasty, which I made in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
just got released finally after being disappeared. The guy who owned the rights, which was actually David Dakota, the director,
Mm-hmm.
owned the rights to it, and it went into the vault and it never came out again. And I just got the rights back to me a few months ago. So Dark Side Releasing has just released the deluxe Blu-ray edition of the third one. So now all three are out there, thankfully.
Are you going to have it at Horror-rama?
I'll have a couple copies because it just came out. I have a few advanced copies, so I'll probably have a couple. I'll definitely have more at Frightmare though, for sure.
Okay, because I'll be at Frightmare.
There you go. That's a weird one. That wasn't even a movie. It was more just like ideas and concepts I had to flesh out. It was more like an art installation project I had in my mind
You
during
know who
lockdown.
you remind me of? You
What?
remind me of Michelangelo Antonioni.
Okay, well that's good
A
person to remind somebody of when it comes to.
blow up. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like that kind of stuff, right? The
Yep.
European films, the very measured, experimental nature, and this was an experiment. I literally just spent time making images and thoughts and music and locations, and had Ali in her leather catsuit walking around the night, and I just kind of made a movie in the edit, and it wasn't intended to be released ever until Dark Side Releasing came up and said, "Look, we love this and we want to release it," and now it's become this weird. It's on Tubi. It's free on Tubi. It's become like a weird little out of all the things I've done, this is the one that has the little cult following, which is really strange.
Yep. Well, I got her signature on that.
There you go.
And
Yes, another one we shot during lockdown where because we couldn't afford it, we couldn't have a cast, we couldn't not even just afford it, but we couldn't find them because everyone was sick and hiding or afraid of getting sick. Allie's in that too, and she
Taya,
plays and
Taya
Taya.
Munster.
Those are the only people, but Allie plays every other character that's not Taya in that movie. So another experiment in style and mood and tone and performance. So and again, Darkside put that out because they got big balls and they put out weird stuff, and I appreciate them.
Now, I would prefer this on Blu-ray, but I got one from Allie when I interviewed her, and I really enjoyed
It
this.
never came out on Blu-ray. To this day,
Yeah.
I mean, eventually it will. Charlie will put it out, but yeah, I don't know why we put it on DVD, and there's been tons of requests for it on Blue, but to this day we hasn't seen a Blu-ray release.
Yeah.
Eventually, eventually.
Yeah. So, where did you discover Allie Chapel?
Where did I discover her? Horror-rama year one, first year. She was I was still married at the time. Nothing, no shenanigans there. I was still
I
married.
heard this from her, but I want to hear your
Yeah,
version.
she was like she was the assistant to a guy named Justin McConnell who was shooting his Clapboard Jungle documentary, which is widely available now. And they were interviewing me, and I brought him in so he could interview Savini, all these people, and she was his assistant. And I thought, well, she's really, really pretty, and she's got a good vibe. She's got like crazy weird vibe, and like but we didn't really talk. In a minor, I think she did afterwards. She volunteered to drive Leslie Donaldson somewhere to the airport because Leslie was still in New York. But other than that, we had no connection at all. The connection came simply from after I was divorced or split, I think she had mentioned on social media something about her. She has a benign brain tumor, and I just kind of reached out and said, "Wow, this is crazy," and very publicly said, like, "Look, let's go out and have a drink to celebrate." She's like, "Okay," and we literally did, and then that was 5 years ago. So that's the end of that. That's the short version of how we kind of met and
I never heard about
and
the
stuck
tumor
around.
part.
What's that?
Never heard about the tumor part, but
Yeah, she's got this benign, non-lethal, well, to the these things could always mutate at some point, but whatever. So she was just mentioning this on social media, and that she's just been given the all clear at that point, that she's good, and so that was the yeah, that was the kind of impetus to hang out, and then yeah,
and I
and then it's
was
been cool to watch her grow, because she was in a couple of films at that time, but nothing much. And I put her in a couple of the films because my movies are always cheaply produced, very locally, and I have complete creative control. And I like to work with people I know. I have to be comfortable with them because I work in a specific way. And I guess the first thing we did was Space Vampire. Maybe. Oh no, I guess it was Necropolis. We'd started Space Vampire, but then we jumped into Necropolis. So
and you
yeah.
had Lynn Laurie in this, who I'm going to tell you, not only did I meet her at Horror-rama, it was the
Mhm.
first time somebody ever gave me their phone number at a convention. I never did call her, but I did email her. And finally, last year, we were able to set up a Zoom interview. But I got Sugar Cookie signed by her in
Good movie.
at Horror-rama. But since then, she's been doing these things online. So now I
Hmm.
got Shivers signed by her. I
Hmm.
got the Crazies, and I Drink Your Blood. Now she's gonna be sending me cat people shortly.
Good. Good. That's her that's her package. Those are the big ones that she did. Cat People. She's not in it for very long, but boy, is she memorable. As Ruthie, I think, is her character's name in that. She's a
Yeah,
wonderful woman, truly wonderful. And
I
during Necropolis,
love her.
I'll tell you a little quick story before I leave about Necropolis. Lynn is such a hardcore. I mean, she's not a young woman, but when she's in a movie, especially Necropolis had some the biggest budgeted thing I'd done, but it was still low budget. And we had this scene with her and the beautiful Augie Duke, who was the lead in Necropolis. And Augie's supposed to grab her arms and flip into this kind of alternate dimension where they meet in this void. While she grabbed, this is late at night, this was the last scene of the day, she grabbed Lynn's wrists, and Lynn's, ow, ow, right? We're cut. What's up? What's up? She's like, oh, well, she grabbed me kind of hard, and she was in agony. So we're like, okay, sit down, whatever. Are you okay? She's like, no, I can do it. I can finish it. Just to grab her again, but then be very gentle with her. And Lynn was just sweating in agony. And then we had to stop again, and someone had to run out, get her some Tylenol. She took the Tylenol. She's like, somebody get me a beer. She takes like a couple beers, just chugs it next, washes the Tylenol down with a couple beers, gets right back up, boom, powers through the shot. And she, at one point, she has to fall to her knees. And again, not a young woman, but she went for it. She's in these big boots that she was wearing, goes down, does the whole shot, still in agony, goes back to the hotel, says everything's okay, flies back, lets us know that a couple days later she went to the doctor, she'd broken her wrist. So, she didn't ask for any comeuppance. She didn't like accuse us of whatever on the set. Things happen. She's just a hardcore warrior when it comes to this stuff, and she got the job done despite such things. And if you're on any big set and an actor does that, the production shuts down. You know what I mean? But not Lynn. Lynn is a beast, an absolute beast. And not only that, like a lot of these indie actors, this is worth mentioning too. The Debbie Rochons, they're great performers. Lynn's a great actor. She truly is. If you give her the space to shine, and I've seen her in a lot of indie stuff that's not great, but she's always great. Debbie's Model Hunger that she directed with starring Lynn. Lynn is a force of nature in this thing. But the tragedy is sometimes with Debbie, Lynn, they get trapped in these low budget films, these small films, and nobody lets them out. I think, Debbie could have been a big mainstream star. I think Lynn could have been a big mainstream star. But she's now, well, I guess it's not too tragic because she's like the big fish in a small pond. But it's worth noting that she didn't just appear in a couple movies and then skates by on that cred. She's been steadily working and creating a really remarkable body of work and a series of performances. She's really, 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 really good actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a co-producer on 13 Fanboy.
Right, right,
Did
right. Yeah,
did
I knew that.
did you see that?
No, I didn't have the chance to see that. No.
Yeah, my picture's in that, covered in blood, and
Okay.
I appear in 9 James Balsamo movies.
Oh, yeah, that man's a machine in and of himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
He
You
just keeps
meant
cranking them out.
I was going to say before you go, you mentioned people behind masks usually don't have a history. You need to talk to Ted White.
Well, that's true. And
That guy was incredible.
that was a really, I regret saying that because when I retroactively think back on all the guys that I've met behind the masks, they always have great stories. That is 100% true. Maybe I had a couple bad experiences with guys like
Yeah.
Tyler Main and stuff. Maybe that
Yep.
was it. I'm like, I don't know this guy so much. He's behind his own supply. But some of those old guys, those old life, and of course Nick Castle, the guy behind the mask, man.
Yep.
I mean, the stuff he did outside the mask is more interesting than hanging out on set with John Carpenter in '78. But yeah, no, you're right.
Ted White I've had on here
Ted White
twice.
is great. Yeah, Ted's great.
And he was my favorite Jason. And the stories he told, like he doubled for John Wayne.
That's right. No, he was great. Now Ted White was what number again? He was
number 4.
number 4. And who was the guy in part 3? I interviewed him at length too. He was great.
Richard Broker.
Yeah, he passed. Now he was an interesting guy too. So you're right. I'm an idiot, and I take back what I said about.
You're not an idiot, but
because a lot of people what I said about guys in the masks being not interesting people. This is the stupidest thing I've ever said. Oh my gosh.
But Ted White, I tell you, some of the stories he shared, like he knew Marilyn Monroe when she was Norma Jean.
Yeah.
Like the stuff
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, and all these guys too. I mean, I remember hanging out with Clu Gulager, God rest him, and just sitting around. I mean, again, Return of the Living Dead, great movie, favorite movie, but we didn't talk about that at all. We should talk about John Wayne and stuff. You know what I mean? Because his career, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Living Dead was a footnote, something that he did to pay the rent. But I mean, my God, the world outside of Clu Gulager, what a life, what a career. So
yeah.
Anyways, man, you collect stories, I collect stories, and all those worlds will coalesce, will congeal when we see each other, I guess, in a week and a half at Horror-rama.
Well, I'll tell you what, next year, maybe around this time, I'd love to have you back because I'd love to get into your movies here in a little more detail.
Yes.
Yep. Because you got some other ones I also want to get too when they
complete the Chris Alexander collection, then I'll come back and we'll
I've never seen these. I just got them and I watched them as I've watched these, but I hadn't seen them prior to buying them.
Right. Yeah, there's a few out there that are still not on Blue, like Scream of the Blind Dead and It Knows You're Alone. So maybe by next year they will be, and we'll have more to talk about.
Well, Ellie Chappell said she gave a hint. She said she likes bald dudes. She said she likes kissing them on the head.
Is this her way of being flirty with you as well?
Well, I got a little bit of hair on there.
Okay, well there you go. So you can't. I'm sorry, you can't. You're out of her league now. I'm afraid. Yeah, well, you're out.
You see, a little bit.
There you go. You're not Allie Chappell caliber, my friend. I'm sorry.
I'm looking forward.
I won the lottery.
I'm looking forward to seeing her, though.
I do feel like I won the lottery with her because she is really again, I really got a head out. I'm gonna get screamed at. But she's another one of these great performers that outside of what she does with me, she's starting to now get roles in other films. Like she's in a new horror film called The Day Lacey Called, which is a satanic possession thriller that's coming out later this year. And I mean, she's gonna kill it. I mean, she's super, super, super good. Sometimes being trapped in Canada limits one's opportunities. So I think we'll see again, reconnect next year. We will see, I think a brighter star for Allie. She goes to LA and whatever. She's going to be, if not a household name by next year, on her way to being one, I think.
Well, folks, looking forward to Horror-rama 2022. Chris Alexander, Caroline Munro, my friend Lisa Langlois, Tom Matthews, Leslie Donaldson, Lynn Griffin, and Sean Sullivan, Lance Kerwin, and of course Blood Opera. Let's not forget, I love those guys.
Not Blood Opera. No. Night Chill.
Well, Blood Opera is going to be there.
No, Blood Opera. Well, they may be there. Maybe they're not performing.
They'll have a vendor set up.
Maybe they do. Maybe you're right. But Night Chill will be performing. Taya Munster's Night Chill will be performing. So don't miss that. Now, Blood Opera will be performing at Frightmare in the Falls, and I'll be performing with them. So that's the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, Blood Opera's I've been at every Horror-rama.
So that's true. That's true that they do. They do always get a little space, and we love those guys. So very talented kids. Yeah,
love those guys. I've actually connected them with some people for their little
little live stream things that they do. Yeah,
cool. I connected them with Lynn Griffin and Paul Lynch and Brandon Maggart.
Oh, Brandon Maggart from Christmas Evil. Nice.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah. He was one of the ones that connected me with Nancy Allen. Brandon did.
Wow.
Because he was in Dress to Kill.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we look forward to seeing Allie Chappell as well.
For sure. She's a doll. Okay, dude. Well, I'll see you later. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Before I let you go, please do a plug for my show.
Okay. Tell me what you want me to say and I'll say it.
Say your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
This is Chris Alexander. You know me from... no. Don't say that. Okay, ready? Hey, this is Chris Alexander, and you're listening to Python's Paradise.
Absolutely.
Okay. Quick and dirty?
Absolutely. Right. Chris, I look forward to seeing you in about a week and a half.
Week and a half, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, man. See you later.
Take care, man. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.